Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Men and Sex. I'm your host, Mr. Wood. This podcast is all about normalizing some of the most taboo topics. Here we talk about sex, we talk about porn, we talk about masturbation. And today we're going to be talking about testosterone, hormones, and men's health. Today I've got a dear friend. I know him from the world of Sacred Sons and men's personal development. His name is Kunal Chhatkara. He's a functional health coach specializing in hormones and bioenergetics. But most of all, he is a man like me that just is curious and likes to know things about the human experience. Welcome to the show, Kunal.
Such an honor to be here, Ian. Thank you so much for having me, bro.
Share with the audience just a little bit about what your passions are that's brought you to this conversation. We're gonna dive into these things around health and how we as men support testosterone and just feeling more alive. What has brought you to be a leader in this conversation?
Yeah, excellent. I think it's pretty broad what my passions are in general, but I would say if I narrowed it down, it really comes down to hormones, bioenergetics, like you mentioned, so mitochondrial health, cellular health, and really, if I put it into simple terms that people can understand, it's creating the environment and the atmosphere for the body to generate and facilitate energy efficiently from
Mm.
the cellular level up. Because from my understanding, from what I've learned, what I've experienced, energy is the foundation of vitality on every level in the human body and in life, from the micro to the macro.
What's crazy to me, even when you say that, is we have to like pause and talk to a cellular level. Like not your average Joe is walking around and is has very much knowledge even of what is going on at a cellular level in our own bodies. So let's even tease that apart a little bit of like what is a cell and just like a little bit of going into that because I think even that could go over a lot of men's heads.
I love it. Yeah, and it's interesting. Like I was one of those men. I was walking around not really aware of what the cellular level was, and it's because of the curiosity of wanting to know what is happening in my body at the most minute level that we can measure today, or maybe even conceptualize before we even had measurement tools. And I won't go down too many pathways, but essentially just the smallest unit of measurement where existence or life is happening within our human biology and on all of life on the entire planet is down in the cell. And in the cell, you have what's become quite popular more recently, the mitochondria, which people equate to like the engine of the cell. It's the energy producing factory of your cell. And that's where a lot of my focus and interest has been because I find that in our modern environment, so much of our lifestyle today, not to any one person or one organization's fault, just kind of, I think, a consequence of our culture is just an almost an onslaught against the mitochondrial health. And so our mitochondria are struggling to really work at their optimal function, whereas, the way that we've evolved with the environment we were naturally born into or with nature, it was far different. We weren't exposed to a lot of the things we're exposed to today that causes mitochondria to now have to work so much harder to get even a fraction of the output of energy.
And don't we have like trillions of cells and like an insane amount are rebirthing like in every moment?
Constantly. It's truly mind blowing when you look into it. There is just so much happening in every single millisecond throughout our body all the time. And it's quite amazing how it's just happening so harmoniously.
And isn't there information around that every cell changes in our body like every 7 years or something? So every cell has swapped out within that timeline?
Exactly. And I would even argue that there's turnover happening much faster all the time. We don't have an exact specified date,
Yeah.
like, all right, every 7 years you're brand new, but constantly your cells are turning over and renewing
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating because from what I've heard, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, when our cells are birthing or coming into existence, they're really tapping into all the information that's available when they're coming in. You know, our thoughts, what we're watching, what we're breathing in, what we're tasting, like all the information that's colliding inside of us is like the information that the cell has contact with when it's first coming into its creation, is what I've heard.
I love that you brought that up because it really brings to mind for me, I think part of my interest in bioenergetics is the whole aspect of the quantum field and how there's that aspect of existence that maybe we haven't measured yet or haven't qualified yet or are yet to understand. And there is so much influence from thought, from environment, or even hereditary things that have been passed down ancestrally through our DNA. My wife and I were just talking about birth, and we were watching a video on how throughout the pregnancy so much information is downloaded, so to speak, into that baby's DNA, even beyond just our lifetime. And there are so many factors influencing it, I'm sure beyond what we can even tell.
And I think for me, when I think about that in a conversation like this, on an episode like this, is the simplicity of what I'm doing every moment matters because it's informing something new in me of what life is. And so as it's coming into existence, whatever's going on in my mind, whatever I'm eating, whatever I'm doing is like telling those new cells, like, this is what life is. And
That's
if
right.
it's low energy, if it's shitty food, if it's shitty shows, and it's all this stuff, then all the times that my cells are reproducing, it's like teaching more and more, like, this is what reality is for me.
That's exactly right. And there's such a ripple effect. I think it's a really profound grace to come into that awareness, just to know, like, hey, everything that I'm doing, and not necessarily to be stressed out about or overcome by, but there is an effect. It is like the butterfly effect. It is like a quartet of strings, and you pluck one, there's a reverberation across the field.
And for me, I actually haven't talked about this a lot on the podcast. Like, I've watched my own journey. For me, I was drinking a ton of alcohol. I was doing like pain pills were my thing. I did them for years. Did a lot of numbing. I had a lot of anger. I would swing from like happiness to triggered really fast. And I can see in my own journey the importance of understanding information like this to keep going, even though I felt kind of shitty inside and like
Mm.
wanted to go to that thing that I had gone to numb before. And he was like, oh, part of me knew that that would make me feel better for a moment. But I knew, okay, well, if I'm putting that in, I'm going to stay here or keep going lower with the information that is being put in here. So I have to understand in each day and each moment, I'm either like coming out of that muck hole or keeping myself or going even deeper into it.
What a challenge to move through. I mean, and I can relate. For me, it was almost on the opposite end with stimulants, like this desire to be fully on and awake. And if I wasn't like all charged up with tons of caffeine or even amphetamines, I was diagnosed with ADD when I was 18. There was a period of my life where it was like if I didn't have that stimulant, I felt like I couldn't function. And it's been a long time since, I've changed many things in my life, environment included, but diet, exercise, so many different pillars that now I don't feel so reliant on any kind of stimulant to be on. And it's really finding that passion, kind of like you and I have spoken about.
And in this episode, for the listeners, we really want to talk about the how all of this correlates to feeling alive. Kunal talked
Yeah.
about the energy at a cellular level, and we talked about vitality, vigor. I love to talk to you all about sexuality through the lens of, do I feel more alive and lit up, or am I feeling more numb and disconnected? And that's a lot of what we face not only in the world of porn. Porn is one representation of this because porn can be like the upper medication or it can be like the downer medication. The ejaculation can be that reset, come down. The experience of watching the porn and pleasuring in that way, that can be the stimulant that's jacking up. And so it's like, this is where all of this is going to collide in this conversation is, what we're putting in, what we're supporting, what we're not supporting in connection to testosterone, but ultimately feeling alive, lit up, and constantly spiraling up, if you will, instead of spiraling down.
Ian, what I actually really love about sexual function and libido is that they're a fantastic report card for the rest of our biological health. So when you have a strong libido, your body's going to prioritize survival over reproduction. Always. And so if you have a strong libido, you're waking up with a hard erection for the men, or you feel stimulated and on and connected to your sexuality, it's generally a very good sign of the rest of your biological health.
And I love that you bring that up because this is another tricky conversation because we have to tease apart libido and
Hmm.
healthy libido because I think a lot of men confuse healthy libido with an obsession for sex.
Amazing. And I think
And
that's something you'd be excellent at speaking on, even for me to hear from that perspective. I imagine from your work, you've seen so many facets of what libido is or can be or how it can be disguised.
Well, what I love that you just pointed out was the body.
Yeah,
You
that's
pointed
right.
towards the body, morning wood, this is the body, and this is a separation that I feel is really important, which is the mind craving something and the body having healthy functional arousal. And I always point towards when we were teenagers and we would just get random erections, which I learned is a clinical term, actually, spontaneous erection,
That's
where you
right.
just get an erection for no reason. There was no thought, there was no fantasy, and that this is actually more pointing towards healthy libido in the terms that we're talking about here, not a mind that's constantly going towards like sexualizing people or porn or having to masturbate all the time, that might actually be led by a mind craving something.
Amazing. I love that you pulled those apart and distinguished them because I think there's this culture of mental obsession. We have this. I've found in my experience that we live up here in our head for so much of the way that we navigate the world. And if I were to spend my entire time navigating the world from my head, I'm really missing what's happening physically in my body.
So let's talk about some of the foundational building blocks of what we as men are facing as a challenge today before we can go towards like what we can support. Whether we talk about feeling alive, testosterone, virality, all of this. What are some of the challenges we're facing in the world today that's having an impact on us that we can't be aware of unless we talk about it?
That's right. Yeah, and I don't want to overwhelm your listeners because, from my perspective, I've gone through this series of recognizing how much we really are faced with. And I think it would be valuable if we just point out what's the highest leverage things, like what we're really faced with on a daily basis in our modern environment that makes it challenging to have optimal hormone levels. And I know testosterone gets a lot of attention these days. Understandably, it's the male hormone, it's the libido hormone. There is so many other hormones that go into that dance. Your luteinizing hormone, your follicle stimulating hormone, prolactin, prostaglandins, all these things work in harmony for an optimized system. And just to answer your question and go back into it more directly, some of the biggest things I would say sleep is absolutely foundational. And we could probably do a whole conversation just on sleep alone. People ask me like, "Hey, what are some great performance enhancing substances I can take?" And I always say the number one performance enhancing drug or substance we have is quality sleep. And almost all of us are combating a non-ideal sleep environment because of our blue light, because of the technology we're surrounded by. We can go into the EMFs and the dirty electricity. It's a whole other field that's currently being studied.
The
And
the shit in our pillows that are made of
yeah,
like
the
toxic ass
plastic and the
foam and
exactly
polyester freaking
the air
pillowcases.
pollutants, exactly. Spending all day indoors and having a high concentration of CO2 and not enough fresh air, and getting the microbiome we need to getting enough probiotics from soil and dirt that's necessary for our bacteria in our gut to produce the neurotransmitters we need to function optimally. And the list goes on and on. But I think really, as a good rule of thumb, if we can think about how our bodies evolved and in what conditions and environments they evolved and get as close to that as possible, it's generally going to be ideal. Now, I don't mean go starve yourself and live in a cave and freeze and put yourself through extreme stress and duress, as I'm sure our ancestors went through, but expose yourself to more nature, to more sunlight, to more challenge. I think men, we actually need challenge and on a hormonal level, not just mentally. I think physiologically, our bodies require challenge and purpose, something greater than ourself to actually function optimally.
I've been nerding out on this so much, and it is a re-education around how important challenge is. Because as we were talking about earlier, everything is so easy, instant satisfaction, instant hit, order anything, have it here tomorrow. Like it's, click anything and watch anything I can imagine. Now with AI, I can just create anything I can imagine. So yeah, it's like this value system that has taught us in a lot of ways like discomfort or challenge is bad.
Yes.
And that for me, one of my favorite books, Obstacle is the Way. This is like this remembering that, oh no, challenge is important. And I think this really connects to sleep too. If I'm just sitting around all day on screens all day, I'm not outside, I don't have physical challenge, like that's going to have an impact on my sleep too. I'm not coming in tired. I'm not coming in like actually getting a workout in my body.
There's so many valuable threads here. I just spent a weekend away at a friend's house in Alpine, and we were off our technology for those 3 days, and they live out just surrounded by land. And just coming home from that, I can feel the difference in my nervous system and the way that I'm relating to our environment. And almost to the point where you and I are talking now, and I'm like, man, I want to get away from all this fast, quick, instant pot like world that we've created. And we hear about like this, oh, our biology is being hacked or our psychology is being hacked. And I wonder, even for myself, if I really understand what that means when I hear that term. And if you think about it, we've gone through struggle and hardship is what has allowed us to evolve with the strength, the virility, the vigor that we equate with strong masculinity. And our minds are we're looking for a quick way to solve our problem. So now if every problem is suddenly immediately solved, of course, to the senses, it's the most appealing thing. It's like holding shiny gold and saying, here you go, this is going to solve everything for you. So we get hooked into this machine that's just offering all this sensational stuff. It's like sensational junk food. And if we don't recognize it, I think it just pulls us away from what is actually required for us to build and support optimal vitality, vigor, virility.
It's funny because it's been the one thing that's changed my relationship to the gym and being physical and working out is I do it purely understanding that me lifting more weight or running further or for longer is a literal representation of me expanding my energetic capacity.
I love that.
That it's like I'm meeting a certain amount of challenge and growing the reserves or the battery that my mind, and then the information's going in my mind. Oh, I can run 5 miles. Oh, I can run 10 miles. So now it's like not only just the body, but it's the mind and its perception of what's possible. That's been the main thing that has gotten me to have any regular gym life whatsoever was switching to like, oh, the challenge I face here, the weights that I lift is actually a representation of increasing my aliveness.
Amazing. I'm going to pull from my educational background on two things you just said. You mentioned reserve and challenge and expanding your capacity. So early on, when I first got into health and wellness, I worked as a personal trainer and a strength coach for many years. And anybody who works out in the gym, bodybuilders, otherwise anyone who's studied up on fitness, you understand the term progressive overload. And that is probably the most foundational principle for how to grow muscle and build strength in the gym. And progressive overload literally means increasing the challenge, the threshold of what your body can do. So just in that, you've essentially tapped into the biggest pillar for increasing strength, adaptation, and muscle building in any kind of physical workout. It's creating that capacity to do more for your body.
Now, what's fascinating, even more fascinating, is tying this to the idea of what can take place in what I would call a proper edging practice,
Amazing.
which
I
is
want,
the
yeah, go
amount
ahead.
of sensation that the body has the capacity to hold, which is also energy, which is also vitality. Like the cells are lit up, when we're at peak sensation of pleasure. And like the ability to go to a 9 or a 10 and then bring it back down, use tools, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, relax, and then go back out and expand even further using breath, sound, movement, touch. It's like in the same way can become an engine of increasing vitality moving through the body by facing a different kind of challenge. It doesn't appear as a challenge because it feels so nice, but it's a challenge nevertheless.
Amazing. And before I go into the second thing I was going to touch on, because I feel like this is your world and I just want to hear it, I'm curious. I imagine that the challenge is actually not going over the edge when you're edging.
Yeah, yeah. The challenge is learning how to expand pleasure out of the centralized area of the genitals.
Mhm.
And the challenge is also to uh, not give in because
Yes.
the body is begging for us the release
Yes.
because that's what it's trained in so many ways to do. And
Yeah.
so the challenge is also like just to let it go.
Right.
Just go for it.
And I've had some elementary experience with this, which is why I can relate to it. I'm smiling is because I know that feeling. And I'm curious what practices you would give to men who are in that place and want to increase their threshold or their capacity. What are some of those nervous system regulating things? I know you
I
mentioned
am such a
parasympathetic.
nerd for sound.
Interesting.
Sounding, breath and sound in that practice. Sound is the thing that I've learned, and it's been many different tiers, so it may be where I'm at on the journey, but sound for me is where I can feel like this channel opens up from the genitals to the throat. There's something about the sounding that allows the pleasure to disperse more easily into the rest of the body. That's really fascinating. And my mind is trying to compare it to like exercise because that's where we are in this conversation. It's just like instead of all the sensation, if I would think like at the gym, it would be pain, of the muscles and wanting to collapse. But in with pleasure, it's like the sounding allows it to move other places, so you can actually increase the capacity
Beautiful.
of feeling more.
Yeah, there's a direct parallel. There's a study that's been done that shows grunting and making noises, even though we all complain about the guys in the gym who are like, ugh. Well, grunting in the gym, actually, there's a bit of measurable effect of it increasing your ability to get an extra rep or two out and push more weight.
What?
And so there's scientific basis for what you're saying. You're dispersing that energy. And I was also
Wow.
thinking about pregnancy because I'm in that season right now. And that's one of the biggest things we learn through a birth class is sound with your partner. Let her, like she's going to moan and make these guttural noises to push through that intense sensation. And if we think of all sensation as vibration, you're channeling the vibration of sound to move it and disperse it, as you said so eloquently.
Wow, I
Makes
love
complete
that
sense.
you brought in that research. That's amazing.
Yeah, epic. And then the other piece I wanted to touch on was from functional health. You mentioned reserve. And probably one of the biggest foundations in the functional health training or functional health world is the metabolic reserve. And what we'll test is your DHEAS and your cortisol. And it's a ratio basically of how much hormone you have of DHEA, which is basically you can think of it as like the mother hormone, where other hormones are manufactured out of, and how much cortisol you have. And if that ratio is in a good balance where you have high DHEAS and not too high of cortisol, cortisol is also essential for many things, which we can touch in on. It generally points to good health. You have a strong metabolic reserve, meaning you'll have longevity and resilience throughout your life.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I need to know more about that.
Yeah, we could dive into all of
Okay,
it.
so we talked about sleep as
That's
a
right.
big one, and like the challenge that we're facing. Is there any other key things to talk about? We talked about light. I think one of the things I want to speak to and would love to hear your perspective on is I've also in my own life, like when I go to bed earlier and wake up earlier, I feel like a different human being. I feel like a different man. Like
Yeah,
when I wake up and I go work on the land first thing in the morning, like I literally pick weeds first thing in the morning. Like I walk the
incredible.
property, I pick weeds as like a practice uh to wake up in a different way. And it's first thing in the morning, but I used to be that person like I had to stay up till midnight every night. I'd watch a show, I'd scroll, whatever. It was just like that's who I'm at. I'm a night owl, that term. But the more I switch to being in the circadian rhythm, I notice my energy levels and I notice my mind and I notice so many other things.
I love it. And this is why you're the man who's the mastery of sex, because you're starting your day pulling weeds early in the morning, getting sunlight and earth. I'm telling you, that's such a foundational piece that we're missing. And I really feel for the young men and women, the boys and girls today with their cell phones. They've got this pocket laptop they're going to bed with every single night. And that's one of the things I would say, really small, low-hanging fruit. Just leave your phone out of the bedroom when you get ready to go to bed. Put it
Yeah.
on airplane mode and leave it in the kitchen or leave it in the hallway. Plug it in somewhere else. At my house, we unplug the Wi-Fi and we leave our phones downstairs when we go to bed. And we aim to do that at 9:30. We're not perfect, but
Yeah.
we shoot for that 30 minutes to an hour before we go to bed and we wind down. Let's just unplug the tech.
So we don't sound like nagging parents just
Yes.
telling their kids to put their phones away. Let's talk about the impacts on vitality or virality or, your hard-ons, like any of
Yeah.
the fruit that's going to
That's
say, this is why it's important. We're not mom, dad shaking our fingers at you. We're giving you information so that it impacts the other areas of your life that you want to be powerful.
Absolutely. It's a great direction to take. And I was a night owl for so much of my teen years. I had the same kind of, oh, I'm a night owl. I like to be up late at night. And I understand it being a teenager and you have so much to, think about. The world's quiet. I can do what I want in my own private space late at night. I wish I knew then what I know now, because the way I feel as you're speaking to it is night and day. we talk about wanting for young men who want to look smacks these days and want to look good in the gym and feel strong and get the girls. All of that functionality is directly tied to your quality of sleep. And not just that, but the majority of your testosterone is produced during nighttime when you're sleeping. So if you're considering, oh, how can I boost my testosterone? Let me go spend $300, $600 on this compound or this supplement or whatever's marketed out there to boost my testosterone. Maybe just focus on sleep. It's free and you'll feel worlds better. I guarantee it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's my sales pitch on quality sleep.
All right, we got sleep. Obviously, we could do a whole episode on that. What are some
Yeah.
other key things that men are facing that are like need attention or understanding?
Yeah, it's a symphony of things. Morning sunlight. The morning sunlight will directly impact the quality of sleep at night. If you get up and you go outside, like you're saying, go out and pull in the weeds, just go outside for 10 or 15 minutes if that's all you can spare and let yourself get some natural light on your eyes and your skin. That's going to increase the amount of melatonin your body produces later at night. And I'm sure many people have heard of circadian biology. It's not that our bodies run on a literal clock, but we do respond to time. Our cells have a rhythm. And I like to think of it as a rhythm. There's the morning rhythm, there's the evening rhythm. And when you wake up, it's actually ideal that your cortisol is spiked because that's the hormone that says, hey, let's get after it. Let's go. Let's get the day started. It also helps burn fat. It helps create energy. That's the wakeful hormone that you want. And one of the best ways to increase it is that morning sunlight and movement. So any kind of movement and sunlight in the morning, very ideal. I know a lot of people are racing to get to their job or get to school, and maybe they miss that aspect. If there's any way that you can portion out 15 minutes of your morning to just do some squats and push-ups and get some sunlight, it'll have a dramatic effect on your energy throughout the day.
And back to challenge, like, for me personally, some of these things are still challenging and have been challenges for a long time. It's not like we're just saying, oh, it's simple. It is simple in the words, but it's like,
It
I
takes
know how
something.
strong a pattern can be to wake up and look at the phone right away. It's still a battle for me that this tool is a tool for me instead of ruling me and draining my life force. It's like, it is a challenge and great. We get to meet the challenge that is, okay, putting in meaning and understanding that these simple things, sleep, getting up, getting sunlight, getting movement, all of them, what we're pointing at are going to have an impact on how we show up as men
Hmm.
inside, outside of the bedroom, just in our masculinity, how we're going to feel and how we're going to express ourselves and ultimately how we're going to experience our lives.
That's exactly right. Yep, and maybe this could be a fun way for some young men to create that challenge if they don't have it. Like, hey, let me start with 2 days. Let me see if I can do 2 to 3 days or 5 days and hold myself accountable to not checking my phone for the first 20 minutes when I'm awake. And start small, bite-sized, and see how you feel. And I think the reward from doing that will naturally motivate, as it did for me. Like, hey, I feel so much better not checking my phone that first hour I'm awake. Now it's just like ingrained in me. I know that my day is way better when I'm not checking my phone the first thing when I wake up in the morning.
And ultimately, yeah, once again, what we're pointing at in this episode is how do we feel more alive?
Yes.
How do we have more access to energy, which is our bank of what we get to create? Whether it's relationship, whether it's work, whether it's creativity, passion, hobbies, whatever. It's our storage bank.
There's this Alan Watts quote that comes to mind hearing you say that. And it's if you think all the time, you have nothing to think about other than thinking. And it kind of sounds like a circular statement, but what it reminds me of is that if we're in this environment where we have constant stimulation, there's always input. Someone's telling us something, there's podcasts, books, lectures, movies. I mean, it's just on and on and on. We have this influx, like a fire hose of stimulation and information. If we don't make it a point to take time away from that and unplug, I think it's difficult to come to novel ideas and creativity and discover what we're capable of creating, where so
Mm,
much of the passion lives, which I think then translates to also feeling alive from the
mm,
bottom up.
mm. And I I think this subject of masculinity is an ever-evolving conversation and journey. There's no one thing that masculinity is. Like we could talk about forever what masculinity is, but ultimately, I think these are some key components, which is my vitality, how much energy I have access to. Look at what Navy SEALs do and people that are extreme men. They can face challenges like they've never, like challenges on an insane level, you know?
Yes, you mentioned The Obstacle is the Way, and I think there's a reason that book is founded on Marcus Aurelius, the emperor in Rome 3,000 years ago. And if anyone hasn't read the book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, it's an all-time favorite that I recommend to everyone. But I think that's why he's still celebrated and admired by so many men today, is because he had such difficulty and such challenge and met it with so much composure and wisdom and was like, hey, this is what I'm made for. And not only am I made for it, I'm going to be grateful for it. I'm not going to complain. And he wrote this book. The Meditations was never actually meant to be published as something we could all read. It was his journal to himself through his hardship. And if you read it, there's such striking vulnerability in him expressing, like, I wasn't made to lay in bed. I was made to get up and face the world and face these experiences. So I think that touches on what you're speaking to. I think it's so vitally important for men today, for us to have real challenge, and whether we have to seek that out because our environment doesn't give it to us, which I also think is part of the difficulty that masculinity is facing. We don't have proper rites of passage. We don't have
Right.
appropriate challenge for young boys to transition into a place where they say, hey, I am capable. I can handle difficulty.
Right. Right. Yeah, and there's another thread that's coming to mind here, and it's around part of this journey, and I think there's a representation of this conversation here is putting myself around other great men.
Mm,
And there, for me in my own journey, it's like I've had to face different layers of what comes up with that, different ways that insecurities express themselves and different ways that feeling not good enough gets in the way and how that is shown. And so, I think so many men today, what they're facing is not being around other strong men.
mm,
And when they are around strong men, there's a collapse. The mind might pick them apart to like push them away. But
mm,
there's just like, this is part of the challenge too, is who am I around?
mm.
What is inspiring me or not inspiring me into being a better version of myself? Because that's a challenge too, to constantly shape myself to a better version, not from the place of I'm not good enough, but let's see what I have the potential to be.
I love that focus on the positive of what do I have the potential to be. That's huge. And our environment is I think it's more important than we often give credit to. Who we're around, what we're exposed to. And in my own experience, it took me being exposed to a different perspective or way of meeting life to actually realize, hey, I can adopt this. I can implement this. I could also have a different way of life. I could see things different. I could feel different. I haven't met a man today that doesn't want to feel strong and vital and feel like they have the energy to create and provide even and to give, whether it's to friends, to family, to themselves. And I think it's a fundamental piece that's missing where we're always consuming instead of
Yeah.
contributing and creating.
So we talked about sleep, we talked about light, we talked about morning sunlight and movement. Are there any other important ones to share with the listeners just as far as like patterns of lifestyle?
Yes. I mean, I can give kind of an outline of how I live my day or my life, but some of the things to avoid, because you mentioned challenges, there are a lot of what they call endocrine disruptors. Your endocrine system is basically your hormonal system. It's a term we've given it to your hormones. And there are compounds and chemicals that we're using because of the industrial age, things we manufacture, that have a direct signaling effect on your hormones in a way that's not great. Like you have phytoestrogenic chemicals that are going to signal greater estrogen activity or aromatase activity in your body, which from one angle or view could be seen as feminizing. It's basically taking away, it's depressing your masculine energy, your masculine hormones. And so it's a concern to look out for. I don't want people to be overwhelmed, and it is a new science we're learning more about every day. But if you think about one of the things to avoid for me and my family, our house, we've gotten rid of, to the best of our degree, any kind of plastic containers. We don't drink out of plastic bottles. We don't heat food in plastic. We got steel, exactly, glass spring water. Filtered water is huge because our tap water has so many chemicals in it. And then they're treating it to kill bacteria, so it's quote unquote safe, but now you're consuming all the chemicals they're treating the water with, the chlorine, the fluoride, all the other components they put in there to make it sanitary, which is not hydrating your body. If you think about how much water plays a role in our functionality, I mean,
Ooh.
and back to the point of vitality, our body is electrical. It's an electrical system, and there's literally it's conductive through water, electricity, and our connection to the earth, which is a giant magnet. And so if we're not putting in the right inputs and we're exposing ourselves to all these manufactured, lab-made, synthetic chemicals, it has an effect. And that effect, from what we've seen from science so far, is not a good one. So plastics, fragrances, like artificial fragrances, if you're using like Axe body spray or an artificial deodorant, like a deodorant with all these chemicals in it with aluminum, I would say toss it. There's great options you can find today. Like I go to Trader Joe's for $5. They've got a non-toxic deodorant. It's aluminum free. It's like zinc bicarbonate and baking soda. It's like 5 ingredients. It's great. It's $5. I use that when I want to use deodorant because I'm not going to the extreme of like, oh, I'm never going to use deodorant. I'm never going to shower. Just find what works. Make the swaps that work. Switch to glass when you're drinking something. Don't heat food up in plastic. Try not to touch receipts if you can. If you work in a grocery store and you're the clerk, wear some gloves. And there's real science that proves it. I got heckled because I made a video using chopsticks to pull a receipt out of my grocery bag, jokingly for Instagram. And people are like, oh, you're one of those guys. But, more and more science is coming out. More doctors are coming out and talking about, hey, there are chemicals in these receipts, BPS, BPAs, phthalates that are directly going into your bloodstream through your fingertips. And we can measure it now. And they are linked to cancer directly. So I would say all the artificial stuff, do your best to avoid it. Go for whole food. Try not to eat packaged processed food. Whole food nutrition. If there isn't a label, it's probably better for you than the thing with the label on it.
Yeah, and once again, we talked about earlier, the steps or the path of the journey is like to head in the direction. I'm sure you are continually learning more and changing more things. And me, like I've been on the same journey. Garbage one is one of the first things that impacted me, and me waking up was like, holy shit, like we just bury garbage in the ground. Like it's just like this
Yeah,
whole
right.
journey of understanding and becoming aware, and once again, meeting the challenge. It
Yes.
can be challenging to be like, oh, everything I eat out of is plastic. I walk in the grocery stores and I'm like, this is a whole warehouse of plastic. This is just all
I
plastic.
love that you're saying this, Ian. I just had like a mini epiphany listening to you share that we are dodging challenge at every turn. And I think fundamentally, I see it on social media. People are complaining, like, oh, here's another thing that I have to worry about. Well, yeah, unfortunately, we've created a world where there are a lot of things that aren't great for our bodies. And it's not to live under stress or to be depressed or feel demotivated, but really to realize, hey, I am capable of making different choices and to facing the challenge to improving my life. And I personally wonder where that click is because for me it happened early on. Maybe it was inspired by vanity when I was 14, 15 and I was overweight and bullied, and the pain of being bullied or feeling not accepted drove me to say, hey, how can I lose weight? How can I get healthy? And fortunately for me, I had a computer in my bedroom at 14 years old, and instead of, I was tired of listening to the school teacher because I was a very inquisitive, curious kid, but I felt like I wasn't learning in school. So I would come home and geek out on nutrition and psychology and all the things that I was interested in on my computer. And that's what led me to discovering the paleo diet at 15. And very strongly, like avoiding all grains and industrialized food to an extreme. It took time for that pendulum to swing back and then find the middle ground, as I think it happens with change. But yeah, I just, that's the question I have is like, what is it that will inspire a young man or young woman to say, hey, my life could be totally different and I don't have to feel like that I can't do it or I'm alone or it's too difficult.
And I think, similarly, I think back to the bench press of like, how do I increase the capacity that I can lift?
Yes.
Well, I get my reps in and I continually put some more weight on there. And the same way with lifestyle is it's like, okay, maybe I'll start with my bottle that I drink water out of on a daily basis isn't plastic anymore. Like that's a lifestyle change. Having a glass water bottle, that shit can break some, I've broken them
Totally.
and
Yes.
people look at you like a pain in the ass because you broke your glass water bottle somewhere. And it's like, well, that's part of my challenge. And it's like taking more steps. Okay, I'm paying attention to the food that I'm eating in these departments. Maybe it's meat first, maybe it's less processed foods, but it is a marathon right now as far as the capacity to meet challenge to be healthy. I mean, obviously there's an extreme version, which is like being an Amish person and just living completely off the land and not having
Mhm.
electricity and technology, most people don't want to go that far. But the
Right.
truth is that it exists.
Yes.
And once again, how do we value challenge? And part of this conversation is to say, okay, I want to feel more alive. I want to
Yeah.
feel more energy. I want to feel more powerful as a man. I want to feel more capable. I want to feel more optimistic. Okay, what can I do? And whatever nugget a person gets from this episode, then that's hopefully another sprinkle into the world.
How do you feel more alive? Do more hard shit. I love that you mentioned all of that, and I love that you said marathon because that's what it is. It takes time. It's not an instant thing. It takes training, and it's a long duration. I mean, I've only done half marathons, but even that takes hours and months of preparation beforehand. And that I think it's important that you start with one small thing you could change, like your water bottle. And when you mentioned breaking a glass bottle, it just hit me. I wonder if we're creating a culture that is fundamentally becoming afraid of responsibility. We're afraid of fucking up. We're afraid of falling short. We're afraid of how we might look. We're afraid of doing the hard thing and carrying the weight of it and the weight of my decisions. Like, hey, I am doing something different than the crowd. And I may stand out. I may look different for it. And what does that offer me? How does that empower me? It's always the one who goes against the grain that discovers something new that actually pushes society forward, at least from what I've discovered. And I think that's why we love these creators, the Steve Jobs, and he's got that quote about misfits and not fitting a square peg. There's something very profound in that, and I think it touches something deeply in the human spirit that we may be missing.
Mm, mm. You talked about how sexuality and libido can be a strong signpost, canary in the cave of health.
The report card, yeah,
Report card. Let's switch it into the things you believe, what some of the things you do to support your health at a cellular level and what we're talking about here, testosterone. What are some of the key things that could be something a man starts to implement? And I want to know this too, like, what is a
yeah.
good thing to put into the system to support the creation of the things that are the building blocks for nice, healthy libido long term?
Amazing. I'm excited by this one. And it's ever growing, like you've said, it's evolving. I'm always learning, I'm always tweaking, shifting, putting things in, taking things out. I would say foundationally, instead of turning to an exogenous compound, the best thing you can do is optimize the environment for testosterone naturally. And also, when we were talking about libido and vascular function and how your erections or morning wood or even spontaneous wood is a signal for your health, if a precursor to cardiovascular health, really your ability for blood to go into your smooth muscle tissue, into your penile tissue, and to have an erection, because those tissues and those capillaries are much smaller than your heart, it's a telltale sign of a future potential cardiac event. So if you start to notice as a man that, hey, my erections are diminishing, I'm not waking up with the morning wood, I'm not hard randomly, or even my erections, they seem less stiff than they used to be, just something to look at. It's not a guarantee, but it could potentially point to a long-term signal toward where your cardiac health is trending towards, which I think is super important. Now, some things that I do personally, I think are foundational. We touched on sleep. Sleep is huge. I feel like I'm always optimizing it and finding ways to. I take magnesium nightly. I think supplements should be just that, supplements. And I think they also have a very important role in our modern lifestyle and environment. Almost everyone is deficient in magnesium. It's responsible for over 300 enzymatic functions in the body, everything from muscle contractions to sleep and restoration to ATP, which is the energy currency of your cell, adenosine triphosphate. So magnesium, every night I take a glycinate or taurate form. They're bound to an amino acid, so it's absorbent. The only magnesium I would say avoid is oxide, unless you are constipated and you want to use it for a laxative effect, because it's not as sufficiently absorbed into the body. So I take magnesium nightly. I take zinc. Now, one caveat with zinc is I take it with copper. Because if you're taking 30, 40, 50 milligrams of zinc every day, you are likely depleting copper in your body. And copper is hugely important for hormone production, for melanin, for dopamine signaling. So copper and zinc together, I pair those. And for libido, I love maca root. I get an organic one, the powder. I take it with my smoothies. I take a scoop full of it. Sometimes I'll take it in capsule form if I need to travel with it and take it with me. And Shilajit. Those are probably the 4 foundational things when it comes to hormone, libido, testosterone health. Shilajit, they take a gram a day, packed with minerals, fumic acids, fulvic acids. You want to make sure you're getting a quality shilajit that's harvested from a good source and third-party tested for heavy metals, because there's a lot of cheap shit on the market. Look out for that. I have some sources I can share with you. You can link them for your listeners. Yeah, shilajit, huge. And then I take an active B complex every morning. And for me, sometimes I'll take it, sometimes I won't, just depending on my diet that day. If I'm having a lot of red meat, maybe I won't take the B vitamins. If I feel like, hey, I could benefit from a couple extra, some adenosine cobalamin. And there's different forms, so it's important to know if you have a really methylated form of B vitamins, you can have what's called methylation. People feel like jittery and on. Or maybe you have the MTHFR gene where your body has trouble methylating, so you need the methylated form. It's good to look into all this, and there's rabbit holes we can go down. But that's on the supplement side, that's what I would take. Apart from supplements, daily action items, wake up and get sunlight first thing in the morning. I'll brush my teeth. I'll come down and hydrate with some salt and lemon juice in my water. You don't need a fancy LMNT electrolyte packet. No hate or shade on them. Just lemon juice and salt and water is excellent. Purified spring water is best. 16 ounces, and then I'm outside getting sunlight. And whether it's doing some push-ups and squats or grabbing my dumbbells or just deep breathing for 10 minutes, I let the sun hit my eyes and my body. If it's overcast outside, I'll increase the time I'm out by 5 to 10 minutes. And I've done some studies and I've shown this, but the lux meter basically showing the illuminance from the sun, even on the most overcast day, you're getting exponentially more light signals to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, to your brain, basically signaling, hey, it's daytime, than you would inside under the brightest light indoors. So even when it's overcast, go outside, get that morning light. It's huge. And then I would say try and de-stress in any way that you can.
Ooh, shit. Let's go in on that.
Yeah, whether it's a pleasure practice, which I'm sure you have, that helps bring you down, whether it's just tapping into your parasympathetic through breath, whether it's doing an NSDR or yoga nidra, which I do every single day. Like I'll just put a guided one on for 25 minutes and I'll unplug from everything. And it is a full body restoration that I think if every single person on the planet did this once a day, I think we'd have far less wars, challenges, hormone issues. I think everything would shift.
Can you hit on just for a moment, because I think stress is like, I mean, that could be a whole episode, but how does stress negatively impact, on a cellular level or with hormones? Like, what's the connection there too?
I love it. Let's unpack it. Yeah, there's what I call good stress and bad stress, just to keep it simple. I really don't think there's anything good or bad, black and white in the body, but let's just call it good stress and bad stress so we can approach it. The body has what we know as cortisol, ephedrine, adrenaline, your adrenal hormones, the things that wake you up, get you going, burn fat. We're going. We've got either a threat, a challenge, something to face. They're actually valuable. And there's been some studies showing that subjective interpretation of stress also influences how that stress affects our physiology. So if you're someone who personally has developed a relationship where when you feel that stress, you relate to it from a good perspective, like, hey, this is good for me. I'm accomplishing something. This is why, the purpose matters so much, or challenge matters so much. Mm-hmm. It actually has a beneficial effect on your body physiologically. Versus if you're under a chronic stress state where you're like, man, this sucks. I don't like this. I'm weighed down by this. And you can feel the exhaustion in your body. Again, another really important reason why I think it's so valuable to be in touch with what's happening physically. You can tell your body's always communicating with you. Hey, I'm really exhausted. The stress is just crushing me right now. It's having a different effect on your physiology. So I just wanted to distinguish that, the good stress and the bad stress. Stress gets us going. It's a response to our environment.
Yeah.
The issue is we get into these loops. I have this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it's all about how animals don't develop these diseases that we as humans have developed because of chronic stress. Because when an issue comes or a threat is announced in the environment, there's a physiological response. It lasts 90 seconds, maybe 3 minutes, and then the animal comes back to its baseline, and those chemicals have dissipated. Whereas for us, as the human animal, we'll be caught in thought loops, thinking about the workday or what I didn't get done or what I have to say to my boss tomorrow or the argument I had with my wife last week or my girlfriend or, dang, that friend of mine never got back to me, and we'll be up in bed just ruminating. And while we're ruminating, it's just flooding our body with these chemicals that are wreaking havoc on our system. And then you compound that with being indoors and eating a non-nutritious, packaged, processed diet and putting on perfume and cologne and Axe body spray and all the rest and staring at my phone at 1 a.m. and scrolling, your whole system it's struggling to work optimally. And so that's why I think stress it's so important for us to unplug, because we have so much stimulation. So if you can find even 15 minutes out of your day to do some deep breathing and put your phone and computer and stuff away, back to your body being an electrical system, I'm sure there's a lot of people who will be like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, that's so fringe, EMFs or whatever. But if you just simply think about it with common sense, all of our technology is running with frequencies and signals and electricity. Well, your body is also doing the same. It's a semiconductor system.
Yeah.
And the earth, being a giant magnet, is also sending a frequency. This is why there's value and benefit in touching grass. There's a reason why it's become the IG trend, hey, go touch grass. Because there's real peace that comes to your body when you discharge your negative ions, your positive ions into the earth, and the negative ions are uptaken, and your body can neutralize. So, yeah, we can dive in on all those things deeper if you want, but
Well, what I'm thinking about is a piece around, so I'm a person like I struggle with supplements.
taking
Like,
them or not taking them, or
yeah, like to stay in the practice of being a daily person. Like I've got them all next to my bed, bunch of them, and it's like I'm very poor at my habit of taking them regularly. I'm like, what's the trick to that?
I'm gritting so big because you and I have opposite problems. So I recently did a 3-day water fast, and part of my motivation for doing that was to pull out the inputs. Because I've also gotten so hooked on to, like, I mean, you should see my supplement cabinet. I've got just like a pharmacy plus some in my, I have a countertop box with supplements, my dailies, and then I have a whole pantry full, just hanging door full of bottles. And maybe there's people out there who do the same. And I would say there are some foundational, fundamental supplements and vitamins that I take consistently. Similarly to you, maybe noticing, hey, going outside in the morning and pulling weeds makes me feel great. I've
Yeah,
noticed that I just feel so much better with them.
yeah,
And then I think knowing the science behind it supports the motivation.
yeah,
Similarly to maybe quitting a habit or getting off of an addiction. Like for me with Adderall when I was 18, I was like, hey, I'm not taking this anymore. The consequences suck. I hate the crash. I hate feeling cold. I hate that I'm not eating. I got to get off this stuff. And what helped me to make that decision was learn as much as I could about the science of how it was affecting my body and what the cost was. And
mm,
that's how my brain works. Once I know the cost, I can see the science, like, oh, this is impacting my physiology in these ways. It really motivates me to make the decision to stop.
mm.
So on the opposite end with the supplements, when I saw how the magnesium was helping me, or the shilajit, the zinc and copper, the B complex, whatever it is that I'm taking, I'm like, oh, hey, this is great. Let me add it in. And there's a balance because you can become like me where you're taking, there was at one point I felt like I was Brian Johnson taking nearly 100 pills a day. I was like, dude, I gotta stop this. I'm taking more supplements than I am food every day.
I'm eating my meals weight and yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I'm on that other opposite end of the spectrum where it's like, how do I help myself to be more consistent? And I felt some of this. The most effect I've felt was actually from a combination of lion's mane and microdose. That one
Interesting.
has been the one that I felt like the most cognitive. Like I felt so sharp. I was like, who's talking right now? This guy's brilliant. And, like I felt the most
Amazing.
effect. And then there's like, things that I take, zinc, some of the things you mentioned, where I don't notice it as strongly, but I understand long term it has magnesium, these things where it's
Absolutely.
like I want to take them because I have the understanding of the building blocks that they create, but I don't have you know I'm a man that's lived a life that was very into big hits,
Yeah.
and so it's like, well, I don't get the big hits from the zinc, but I know
Yeah.
that I need to take it regularly.
That's what started for me too. And I watched the movie Limitless when I was really young, and I was like, oh, I got to recreate that. I'm gonna find the combination of pills or compounds to get me super boosted and clear and articulate and have the greatest functioning on my brain. And I was even ordering things off Black Market. This is before Reddit. Before I mean, this was like I was on Longevity forum, and there's like some 40-year-olds on there talking about some compound they got from China, and I was ordering these racetams. I think I was 13 to my bedroom. Fortunately, I didn't take any of those, but I was ordering kava from Hawaii at 14 and trying these things. So I've always kind of had this obsession with you treating myself as a guinea pig and just
Yeah.
experimenting and seeing how I could alter my consciousness. I get the lion's mane and the psilocybin. It's funny. I take lion's mane off and on seasonally, but I haven't noticed much of an impact from it.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I have recommendations, things I'll send you. I'll create a little stack for you. that I
Yeah.
would love for you to try in the morning and just see how it affects your cognition and your clarity and that brain fog. Because there's a little morning stack that I just swear by, and I take it daily. And I feel like I feel like I'm high without any drugs, and I know it's just because my body's optimized and it's working optimally. And the
Well,
thing with the zinc, sorry to jump in
no,
one
go
more
ahead.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the zinc and the magnesium, those kinds of things are really it's a compound interest. And I think where someone would really see the benefit is if they have a deficiency. So if you were really deficient in magnesium and zinc and you started taking it, maybe it would take 3, 4, 5 weeks, but after that consistent period of taking it, you would start to really notice the benefit. And I think that's the thing. If you can just keep that input, I would start with 1 or 2 things, like maybe the zinc and magnesium or magnesium and shilajit, and keep it up for 8 weeks and just measure how you feel. Do a little self audit from when you started to 8 weeks later.
And back to this is me meeting a challenge around consistency.
Love it.
And you know what I want to say is we're going to have to talk. I think what would be epic to do is to take aspects of this conversation and turn it into a automated training that we can put in the community space.
I love that idea.
And it could be like, yeah, optimization of these things that we're talking about and like break it down even more and give them more understanding and meaning. So I think that that would be fun to create.
That'd be super fun to create. I actually have been working on a digital product called the Vitality Code. And essentially,
Perfect.
I was trying to make this blueprint, like low hanging fruit. What can someone just answer these 18 questions, share a little bit about themselves, and I can give them a custom tailored program covering everything from a daily movement plan to supplements to nutrition. Like, hey, here's a grocery food run you can make, and a little chart you can print out and track your progress for 2 weeks. And so I put this whole thing together. I've just been pouring into it for the last 3 months. And it's almost ready. I'll share it with you when it's ready. Maybe you can beta test it for me and we can share it with the listeners too. And then from there, I would love to build something with you. Sounds amazing.
What ways can people, if they want to get, follow you, learn, what's the best ways to learn from you? Do you have any offerings for people right now?
Yeah, Coach Kunal on Instagram. It's just COACH dot my name Kunal. Just started the page recently. There's a period where I was really active. Right now I'm kind of back and forth on the content. But that's where you can find me. I usually check it periodically. You can email me. Maybe I can share my email with you and you can drop it in the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I do offer one-on-one health coaching, personal training. I've kind of put a pin in, but if someone's local and they want to do more physical training or they want to hop on a Zoom and get some aspects like some insight on physical training or a workout program or talk about nutrition or any of the stuff that we've talked about, I like to make myself available for anyone. I love talking about this stuff, so yeah, I'm always open for it.
Great. Whatever you want to put, I'll put it in the show notes. And
Epic.
thank you so much for coming on the show today. Anything you want to sign off with for the listeners?
Man, it's been such a pleasure. I just every time I do a conversation like this or a podcast, I realize how much I love this stuff, and I feel like you are such a pillar of strength and vitality for the community, and I love that you're spearheading this from an angle of sexuality because I do not think enough men are talking about it. So yeah, I'm just really grateful you had me on. I'm excited for future episodes together and anything we can create and collaborate on. I'm
Yeah.
here for it.
Thank you so much, brother. And to the listeners, once again, this is about optimizing, meeting the challenge for you to feel more alive, more energized, more capacity to create whatever it is that you want to. Relationship, friendship, business, strength, whatever that all of that comes from how alive you feel and what's going on at a cellular level. So take these tools, whatever landed for you, implement one thing, whether it's sleep, the phone outside of your room, the water bottle, whatever it is, take one thing to implement into your life that will, in the long term, have massive effects if you do it consistently, meet that challenge like I'm going to. Many more episodes to come. See you on the next one.